All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Autumn Saplinski, and I am the anti-trafficking specialist at Safe Harbors of the Finger Lakes.
I'm Melissa Gilbert. I'm the Child Advocacy Coordinator, and I also oversee our human trafficking program for Safe Harbors.
Today we're going to be talking a little bit about CSEC and the human trafficking referral process. So human trafficking is the recruitment, harboring, transportation, or obtaining of a person for labor or services through the use of force, fraud, or coercion. So force can be seen as physical abuse, such as beating, slapping, burning, sexual assault, confinement. Fraud can be seen as false promises, withholding wages, lying about work conditions, promises of a better life, and preying on desperation and poverty. And coercion can be seen as threats of serious physical harm to the victim or their loved ones, intimidation, emotional abuse, creating dependency, blackmail with pornographic images, and threat of legal repercussions. These three components are only necessary for individuals 18 and older. However, you don't need to prove all of them. There just needs to be one component in order to for it to be trafficking. So now, on the other hand, if the individual is under the age of 18, there does not need to be proof of force, fraud, or coercion. So under the federal definition of sex trafficking, victims under the age of 18 are automatically victims regardless of whether or not force, fraud, or coercion is present. So there's two types of trafficking. There's sex trafficking and there's labor trafficking. Sex trafficking is profiting from selling sexual acts and or images or other acts. Some examples include when an individual takes pictures of a minor and sell those, or a minor having sex for money or something of value, such as, vapes, drugs, alcohol, food, clothing, anything of monetary value. Labor trafficking, on the other hand, is compelling or inducing another to engage in labor, or recruiting, enticing, harboring, or transporting another person. A great example of this is we had a case here at Safe Harbors in which a kid dropped out of high school and found what seemed to be a great job working for a mechanic shop and living there as well. Well, the kid was being paid under the table, way under minimum wage, and his rent was being taken out of his paycheck too. So that is clear-cut labor trafficking. People aren't as outraged by labor trafficking as they are sex trafficking. We see labor trafficking in farms, which includes families, lots of migrant workers. It's trickier to prove, and those workers, they don't want to speak out. Many people confuse human trafficking with smuggling. In human trafficking, no transportation or border crossing is required. So people can be trafficked by people they know, or even family members they know right in their own homes. So CSEC is a term that is used a lot when talking about minors. CSEC is commercial sexual exploitation of children, and occurs when individuals buy, trade, or sell sexual acts with a child. A commercial sexual act occurs when anything of value is given to or received in exchange for a sexual act. So for example, let's say a youth has oral sex in exchange for a vape. So that is commercial sexual exploitation, as they're doing something of sexual nature in exchange for something of monetary value, which makes it that. So CSEC encompasses more than just human trafficking. It includes prostitution, pornography, sex tourism, mail order brides, stripping or performing in sexual venues, and survival sex. So there have been a couple of cases where women were brought over from different countries who had children, and these men who bought these mail order brides, they weren't looking for them, but they were looking for their children to take advantage of and exploit. There's also the concern that in New Jersey, a person can work in a strip club if they're 16. This is very concerning because, these individuals, they're still children. Additionally, we're also seeing strip clubs and sexual venues calling themselves bikini bars or clubs to get around the age gap of workers needing to be over the age of 21. Also, if they don't serve alcohol or have a liquor license, then they don't need to be 21 or older, which is also a huge concern. But what we most commonly see survival sex and where there's the most risk for kids running away. These children feel like they have no other option because their exploiter is providing them with a house and, essentially a means to survive. So now we're going to go over some situational circumstances. So first and foremost, a homeless youth receives shelter from an adult friend who asks her to sleep with a few of his buddies to help pay the rent. So it may not always start out like this. There is a grooming and manipulation, that typically happens before this. So a trafficker will typically gain the trust and loyalty of a victim, and when they're asked to have sex with his friends, they'll feel like they're helping him and doing it for him by making sure they both have a place to stay. A teen in foster care runs away and is picked up by two men in a car on the highway and is coerced into prostitution. So there is no such thing as child prostitution. It is child sex trafficking, always. There's no such thing. A mother rents her children to a sexual predator or pedophile to support her drug addiction. For example, a great story my supervisor shared with me is that she once was working with a teen boy at Hillside, and he had been sexually abused by multiple men, all being boyfriends of his mother, and she would allow these men to sexually abuse her son in exchange for rent, drugs, and companionship. And lastly, a 13-year-old sends pictures to an unidentified man on Snapchat who threatens to kill her family, then sells the pictures online. So we see this one a lot more often. Youth often feel scared to, tell because they don't want their parents to find out that they were talking to older men or that they sent, inappropriate pictures on social media. They're, very fearful and scared of what's going to happen next. So going back to the 13-year-old who sent pictures to an unidentified adult male on Snapchat, that would be a perfect example of sextortion. So sextortion is a serious crime that occurs when someone threatens to distribute your private and sensitive material if you do not provide them images of a sexual nature, sexual favors, or money. About 2 years ago, there was a case in Newark where a man used Snapchat to engage in sexually explicit conversations with a 14-year-old. He coerced the minor into sending him nude photos, and when she indicated that she did not wish to continue communicating, he threatened to distribute her photos over the internet. So using this and other threats, he coerced her to continue to send him sexually explicit photographs and videos. And, this is what I'm seeing, most of the time. It's just, what happens when youth or anyone is going online, especially with the area that we live in. It's very rural. There's not a lot to do. So when there's not a lot to do, what is youth doing? They're going online, and unfortunately, there's a lot of predators out there that want to groom and take advantage of these young people. So now I'm gonna play a video. It's about 4 or 5 minutes.
In one
yes.
particularly heinous case, a 26-year-old man named Lucas Michael Chancellor terrorized more than 350 young girls on social media and chat sites.
None of us in Jacksonville, including task force officers and fellow agents who've been working these types of violations for years, we had never seen anything like this before. Chancellor
entered online chat rooms popular with girls, going by numerous online names like Captain Obvious, Tyler the Conqueror, and Hot Guy 160112, posing as a teenage boy. interested in skateboarding. He asked his prey to video chat, then strip and perform a series of specific poses, all the while secretly recording them. One of Chandler's targets, Ashley Reynolds, says she felt like his captor.
And as I'm doing this, he would be like, no, this isn't right. This one's blurry, or you didn't do this right. You weren't doing it right. You got to do it again. So then that's where being a slave to him comes in, because I had to make sure I complied.
Chancellor amassed more than 80,000 images and videos that he used to threaten the girls, saying he would hurt them or their families if they didn't give him more. He meticulously labeled his files, marking them done when he was satisfied with his blackmailing.
Next to the victim's name, he'd have little notes to himself, like I remember one was, "We'll try again." Another was, he had a note, "On Facebook now."
Samantha Chonsky was just 13 years old when she and a friend encountered Chancellor online.
He was in one of our chat rooms while me and my friend were chatting with people we thought were our age, asked us to flash our breasts, and for 2 seconds he was able to snap a picture.
Months later, he resurfaced, ready to manipulate her.
I couldn't believe that someone even had a picture of me, and I was afraid. I was super scared. And as a 13-year-old, you believe that someone's going to do those things that they said they're going to do to you.
Samantha says over the course of the next several hours, Chancellor directed her through his choreographed poses, asking her to perform graphic sex acts she'd never even heard of. Finally, Chancellor seemed satisfied and left Samantha alone. She says she immediately deleted her social media accounts and never told anyone about the encounter.
I was afraid every day that he would come back and taunt me.
Chancellor told the FBI he specifically sought out girls in their early teens.
One of the comments he made was because older girls wouldn't fall for his ploy.
Chancellor used multiple proxy servers that hid his identity, routing his communications through other countries. That's how some sextortionists get away with it, according to attorney Carrie Goldberg.
Local law enforcers don't know what to do. They don't know how to de-anonymize somebody who's acting out on the internet. They don't want to prosecute or worry about offenders who might be on the other side of the world, which happens with these types of internet crimes.
Chancellor was finally prosecuted in 2014 and sentenced to 105 years in federal prison. But the FBI says only about a third of his victims have been identified, and they're encouraging more to come forward. Samantha Chonsky says she's glad to see him put away.
It was really overwhelming at first, but it felt really good to kind of confront the guy who caused me so much pain and suffering.
Chonsky says even though she knows she's safe from Chancellor, the experience has left her changed forever.
I became suicidal. I've attempted suicide. And I live with anxiety now. I can't walk down the street and feel comfortable if I get looked at by a strange man.
How concerned are you about sextortion?
I think that there couldn't be anything more important for our country to be focusing on as a new crime that needs to be really concentrated upon.
What is sextortion?
The FBI posted this video on their website, counseling teens how to protect themselves.
Here are some things you can do to avoid becoming a victim.
Because they're not alone, Samantha says she wants other girls to know they shouldn't feel embarrassed if they fall for a sextortion scam.
The best thing that you can do is to reach out to somebody that you know cares about you and is close to you and that you can trust and seek help.
For Nightline, I'm Lindsay Davis in New York.
So how does this happen? Well, vulnerabilities are one of the ways that it happens. Well, we all have vulnerabilities, and vulnerabilities are characteristics that make it easier for someone to be taken advantage of, manipulated, or controlled. It's important to note that vulnerabilities, I apologize, don't indicate that an individual is being trafficked, but it puts them at a higher risk of being trafficked. So first and foremost, low socioeconomic status, that definitely contributes to a vulnerability. History of abuse and or neglect. Exposure to violence, so whether that be physical violence, sexual, emotional. History of alcohol or substance abuse. Mental health diagnosis, whether that be depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, etc. Increased increase experimentation with sexual behavior or risky behavior. So unprotected sexual activity, sexting, talking to strangers on the internet. Those are all 3 examples. And displaced from home, whether that means the youth is in foster care, the youth is runaway youth, or youth that is moved from home to home to home. And, you know, age is also a huge vulnerability. You know, young people, their brains aren't fully developed. So, you know, traffickers acknowledge that, and, you know, they use that to their advantage. And low self-esteem or self-worth. So now we're going to discuss some red flags of youth to keep an eye out for. So the youth is under the age of 18 and has engaged in commercial sex, regardless of force, fraud, or coercion. So again, an example of this would be a youth having oral sex or a vape. So that is a clear-cut need for a referral. History of multiple runaways or AWOLs, or any episode of child homelessness. Photos of the youth have been placed online for advertising purposes. Most commonly would be on Snapchat, OnlyFans, Reddit, or Craigslist. So the youth will post on Reddit and or Craigslist, what I've seen, to add them on Snapchat, and then from there they will advertise their services. So if you see youth on these websites and giving out their Snapchat username, it is just important to report that as well. The youth presents themselves with an inexplicable appearance of excessive cash, expensive gifts, clothing, or other costly items. So the latest iPhone, name brand clothes, shoes, purses, fancy watches, or other accessories. The youth has tattoos or markings indicating ownership or control by another individual. So we see a lot of times dollar signs and initials, and these brandings or tattoos are most commonly found on the neck, arm, and above the groin area. And the youth frequently stays at or is seen at hotels or motels, and they feel they must provide commercial sex in exchange for money, housing, or other necessities. So whether that be because they're experiencing homelessness, they're helping pay bills at home with this money, or, you know, their parent or caregiver doesn't give them money to do the things that they want, or, you know, get some of the things that they want. So they're turning to this way to get it. Some red flags of traffickers. An older individual hangs out with younger people and encourages them to do potentially dangerous things. Grooming is a big one, and a big tactic that traffickers use. So that would be giving, you know, the youth or adult gifts, taking them on dates, complimenting them, false promises that seem too good to be true, and sending money for no reason. They'll oftentimes offer a free place to stay, especially for runaway youth. They always accompany others and do most of the talking. We see this a lot at, you know, doctor's appointments and, you know, the hospital. Material goods beyond the means of their job. They frequently transport others, especially at night, to and from hotels. And there's someone a youth meets online that tells them very little or inconsistent information about themselves. So traffickers exploit others for the profit gained from forced labor and commercial sex. They lure and entrap people into forced labor and sex trafficking by manipulating and exploiting their vulnerabilities. They also prey on people who are hoping for a better life, who lack employment opportunities, have unstable home life, or have a history of sexual and or physical abuse. Traffickers oftentimes, you know, promise a high-paying job, a loving relationship, or, you know, new and exciting opportunities, and then use physical and psychological violence to control them. Traffickers, they can be lone individuals, or they can be part of extensive criminal networks like gangs, with a common thread of exploiting people for profit. So now we're going to transition into a little bit of different gears. So I know that we have a decent amount of school-based staff with us today. So I wanted to have a conversation. What are your school-based policies, if any, for when a student discloses that they have been trafficked? So let's say if a student came into your office and stated that they are having sex with one of mom's friends to help her pay for rent, what would you do? What is your next step of actions? Do you contact the SRO, law enforcement, CPS, us? What would you do?
It's also okay, like if you don't know. So if you're not really sure what your school policies are, or even like department, okay, so we have SRO. That's good.
And feel free to submit in the chat. Yeah, so definitely contact the SRO. You know, they're the law enforcement in the school. Definitely talking to them. Make a hotline call. For sure, you know, definitely the National Human Trafficking Hotline, or give us a call. We have a 24-hour hotline, Safe Harbors, as well.
Well, even CPS. So I think Connie may be talking a little bit about CPS and that, you know, because if we're talking about a mom's boyfriend to help pay the rent, if mom is aware of that, so then we would call the CPS hotline for that as well. What about services for a youth? So if you have a youth who comes in, what is your response to maybe help that youth as well? Other, you know, because we're going to call the SRO, we're going to call the hotline. What might your response be to? Yeah, call. Thanks, Megan. Yes, you're going to call us. Thank you.
Yeah, so, you know, that's a perfect plan of action. You know, contact the SRO, make that hotline call, and then contact us. Let us know what's going on. That's definitely a great way to go. Hang on, sorry. So schools have several responsibilities regarding child trafficking. So first, they must increase staff awareness and educate staff on the indicators and the natures of the crime. 2, increase parents and student awareness of the risk and realities of trafficking. And 3, develop and clearly articulate district or school-wide policies on and protocols for identifying a suspected victim or responding to a disclosure from a suspected victim. I apologize. So training on risk factors for vulnerable children, the signs and indicators of exploitation and trafficking, and the victim-centered approach should be provided to all staff working with students. It is also imperative that school personnel understand best practices for interacting with trafficking survivors who, you know, oftentimes struggle with shame and embarrassment and too frequently believe their victimization is their fault. So it's important to suspend all judgments and remaining open-minded. It's critical to create a trusting and, you know, safe relationship in which vulnerable students feel safe to confide and seek support. In order to be ready to assist a child victim, school districts, they should develop a procedure similar to the procedures used in cases of sexual assault or for reporting child abuse. Because trafficking of children is child abuse, the protocol may be an addendum to the existing child abuse reporting protocol. But, you know, like we were discussing, you know, contact the SRO, make that hotline report, and then, you know, contact us. Those are definitely, you know, 3 great ways to, you know, get some support and some help for the child. An effective school policy should require that school administrators and/or authorities be notified immediately while maintaining the student's confidentiality to the extent possible under the law. Once a victim is identified, it is imperative that all responding providers coordinate intervention and support for the victim, as well as ensure minimal impact on other students. So as well as, oh, hang on, I'm gonna play a video, then I'll discuss. Can you all see this video?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
We have worked with survivors of child trafficking and exploitation for years, and through our work we've learned how children end up being trafficked. They tell us what happened and how it happened. They tell us how they were deceived. They tell us how hurt they are. They'll say, "If only I'd known." Survivors of child trafficking all have their own unique stories, but the stories share a common thread. These children are vulnerable. They're vulnerable from living in poverty. They're vulnerable because they feel rejected. They're vulnerable because they feel unloved, because of stereotypes they feel pressured from, because of how technology can be used to target them. They're vulnerable simply because they're children. Traffickers know these vulnerabilities better than the children themselves. In fact, they count on that. And children, their lives can change in a moment.
Love 146 exists because there are children who are used and sold like commodities.
For years, we've journeyed together with survivors down the long road of recovering their childhoods, their hope, healing, and their future.
But the reality is, we do survivor care because a horrendous crime has already been committed against a child.
But you can't continue doing survivor care without asking, how do we stop this? What is the best way to prevent this from happening in the first place?
We asked, what if the children had just known about trafficking? But the answers have come up short. A lot of research shows us that knowledge alone does not change the outcome.
And these moments are complex. It's not as simple as just say no to traffickers.
To stop children from being trafficked, we need to do something more.
When a child encounters a trafficker, they are often at a disadvantage.
They might see a friend, an ally. They see someone who they believe understands them.
The thing is, traffickers don't look like what we see in the movies. Sometimes they look like you and me.
If you don't know you're being manipulated and how to get away, you're trapped before you even know what's happening.
So we have a strategy to equip and empower youth to protect themselves and their friends.
Through prevention education, we give children the advantage. We teach them how to spot traffickers even when they don't look like you'd expect.
We go beyond awareness. We give them the skills to stay safe. You've got to know your own vulnerabilities and what makes you a target.
You have to know who's actually on your side and who really isn't.
You have to know how a predator might approach you.
And you've got to know what you'll do next. You need muscle memory in that moment.
More importantly, you've got to know who you are. That's what makes you strong.
When you love yourself, when you know your own value.
When you draw upon your innate resilience and creativity.
That's why we created Not a Number.
It's an in-depth prevention program informed by the experiences of survivors and written with the help of some of the leading anti-trafficking and child protection experts.
We're training teachers, social workers, and professionals to help children develop the skills and agility they need to respond in unsafe situations.
We're going through these situations with the kids, thinking through the scenarios, planning their responses, and they actually get to act it out together.
So they'll know what to do in those critical moments.
So far, we've seen some amazing results.
Children have come back to the group and shared how they've been able to avoid potentially dangerous situations.
How they're now able to see and empathize with friends who need support. We know that reaching children with this program is a powerful way to keep our children safe.
For too long, many of us in the anti-trafficking movement were responding to what traffickers were doing.
We want to turn the tables. We want to make traffickers scramble to respond to what we're doing.
We need to make it more difficult for them. Actually, we need to make it impossible.
To traffickers, this is about making money, which involves the economics of supply and demand. Many organizations are working to disrupt the demand. We're working to disrupt the supply.
And our stomachs turn at the word supply to describe children.
Supply is a term for things like oil or wheat or steel, not people. But the traffickers see supply. We see children.
They're not commodities.
Not a price.
Not a statistic.
Not a label.
Not a number.
So Safe Harbors of the Finger Lakes has multiple staff members that are trained in the Love 146, not a number, child trafficking and exploitation prevention curriculum. So Love 146 is an international human rights organization working to end child trafficking and exploitation through survivor care, prevention education, professional education, and empowering movement, like they just said. So not a number is a 5-module curriculum designed to teach youth, specifically ages 12 through 18, how to protect themselves from human trafficking and exploitation through information, critical thinking, and skill development. So each module is designed to be completed in approximately an hour. These modules can be implemented over a period of days or weeks, depending on your schedule. So if you're interested in this service, please reach out to me or Melissa. Our contact information will be at the end, and we'd love to come in and do this curriculum. So like I said, it's 5 modules. This is the book we use, and it's very informative.
Yeah. We can also shorten them to 4 classes. So some schools have had us, come in for 4 class periods, 5 class periods, 6 class periods, whatever works for you guys. They can be shortened to a minimum, but it's really informative. The kids really take a lot from it.
All right, so now we're going to switch gears and go over the referral forms and everything of that nature. So this chart that you are seeing, school-based staff, this does not apply to you. So feel free to tune me out until the next slide. So this is the flow chart on steps as to how to complete the rapid indicator form and the comprehensive tool only for youth in the care, custody, or supervision of an LDSS, voluntary agency, or OCFS. So what I'm about to say might sound confusing, but don't worry, we're going to break it down in each slide, and we're going to go over a case scenario as well. So first, you will complete the rapid indicator tool, and if yes is answered to any of the indicators, the youth may be at risk, and then you must complete the comprehensive tool. So after completing the comprehensive tool, you must complete the Taskforce referral and submit all 3 forms to advocate@csecfingerlakes.org. I'm going to go over this information again, like I said. So after that, you will need to contact your Safe Harbor lead to tell them that you have submitted a trafficking referral. For Ontario County, your Safe Harbor lead is Melanie Ulrich. Seneca County, your lead is Amanda Hopkins, and Yates County lead is Melissa Gilbert and myself. So if your client has met any of the federal definition criteria of sex trafficking on the comprehensive tool, then the Safe Harbor lead, so that is Melanie, Amanda, or myself or Melissa, then we have to submit the law enforcement report of a child sex trafficking victim form to the New York State Police within 24 hours. So this is why it's so important that you notify your Safe Harbor lead once you have submitted a referral. And once that referral is received, I'll be working with the victim to provide services, and an MDT meeting may be requested. Depends on the case. Every case is different. All right, so the rapid indicator tool. The rapid indicator tool should only be used if the client has not already disclosed trafficking. And it is important that you're never asking the client these questions directly. These questions should be answered specifically on your knowledge of the client. If the client or the child has already disclosed sex trafficking, this tool does not need to be completed. The comprehensive screening tool should be completed instead, and we'll discuss that. So let's pull up the indicators. All right. So
I'm also gonna put the links to the rapid indicator and the comprehensive in the chat so that you guys are also able to pull them up. You can save them to your computer, or you can even just do a quick Google search like OCFS rapid indicator tool, and it'll pop up. Just give you
and Sarah should have emailed you all these forms as well, so they should be in your email as well. So on the first page, it just kind of goes over the instructions and, you know, what to do. It tells you again, do not ask the child or family these questions. It's not a questionnaire. So the indicators listed on the rapid indicator tool, they help determine whether a child may be a victim of sex trafficking or is at risk of being a victim of sex trafficking, excuse me. So these factors are to be considered as a means to determine whether there is a reasonable cause to believe the child is a victim or at risk of being a victim, in which case a more comprehensive assessment of the child's experiences and service needs is required. It is also important to note that the tool must be completed and documented if the child returns from being missing, abducted, absent without consent, and every time a new CPS investigation is open for the child. So this rapid indicator tool, it's 11 questions. It can be, you know, quite wordy. So, you know, it goes over, is there signs of child abuse of a sexual nature, and reason to believe the child or parent or guardian of the child or other persons facilitating the abuse was given or promised anything in return for the sexual abuse. Are there photographs or social media posts online or anywhere? Has the parent or guardian been a victim of trafficking, or, you know, is there a concern that the parent or guardian has been a victim? Does the child have a history of, you know, multiple runaways, AWOLs, episodes of homelessness, couch surfing? Does the child have any tattoos? Do they have or have they had a significantly older boyfriend or girlfriend that was controlling? Does the child have multiple chronic STIs, multiple or chronic STIs or pregnancies or abortions, or report multiple sexual anonymous partners? Does the child have money, a cell phone, hotel keys, other items that, you know, they cannot account for or have the resources to obtain? Has gang affiliation been disclosed? Is the child's parent or guardian not in control of their identification forms? And then this question, the last question, is the most important. So do you have any other reason to believe the child may be a sex trafficking victim? So if there's any reason at all, if you just have, you know, that gut feeling that, you know, something's going on and, you know, they might be a sex trafficking victim, you know, just submit it like that. And then, you know, we'll go into the comprehensive.
So there was a question, Autumn. Heather asked that, you know, we mentioned that school social workers don't have to do this, and if so, is it related to our policy of SRO and CPS context? So we do, so as far as what you would need to do is, and I think Autumn was just talking about that one piece on how it's laid out for CPS and for CPS caseworkers, and how they have to contact and do their reporting as far as when they have a trafficking client. So, but we still do need school staff to do the rapid and the comprehensive when you're making the referral over to us. It just kind of helps us give a better idea of, you know, what services that child needs and what we also need to focus on with that child if we are going to be providing services.
Thank you for that question. Very good question. All right, let me close out of this. All right, so next, the comprehensive tool is used when there is one or more indications from the rapid indicator tool. So anytime there is one or more indicators, that child is automatically at high risk and a referral to Taskforce should be made. So this tool is meant to be used over the lifetime of the case, as every time you work with a client, you're going to obtain more information about them. So it's important to update the comprehensive tool as you gain more information about the client as well. So let's pull this up. The comprehensive tool is very helpful, and it breaks indicators down by risk level. So again, on the first page, it gives you instructions. Always fill out the top part. And then this box, if you click yes to any of these, and, you know, if you are, you know, an LDSS, voluntary agency, or OCFS, and you have a client through that, then it is very important that you notify your safe harbor lead. If you select yes to any of these boxes, because as we have to fill out a New York State police report and send it in. So the first box, child meets the federal definition of a child sex trafficking victim. So this, means hey, they reported they're engaging in it, or they've been witnessed, stuff like that, or, there's photos online of that sort. High level indicators, those can be seen as, the child is associating with adults or other children who are known to be involved with trafficking and or exploitation, being seen in exploitation hotspots, street homelessness, multiple AWOLs, being taken to clubs and hotels by adults or older peers, disclosure of serious sexual assault, then withdrawal statement, abduction and or forced imprisonment, child reports, or someone else reports the child being moved around for sexual activity, disappearing from the child welfare system, using slang trafficking terms, recruiting peers, those tattoos again, they don't have their identification. So their birth certificate, their social security card, passport if they have it, driver's license if they have it, unexplained hotel keys. The child reports that they had, the child discloses or someone reports that the child offered to have sex for money or other payment and then ran before the sex took place, being groomed on the internet. And then medium level indicators, getting into the car with unknown adults, child under 13 engaging in sexual activity, known history or of prior sexual abuse or sexual acting out, having that older boyfriend or girlfriend, not attending school. That is a big one that I see, and definitely important to submit that as well on the form if there is that concern. Staying out overnight with no explanation multiple times, unaccounted goods or money, multiple sexually transmitted infections, pregnancies, abortions, miscarriages, gang member or association with gangs, overt sexual dress, they don't know their address or they've moved multiple times, alcohol or drug use by the youth, or their story just does not make sense. So there's a lot of things that you could potentially select yes or no to based on what you selected in the rapid indicator tool.
Yeah, so I know that these forms can look really overwhelming. There's a lot of questions there, but we just ask that you do your best. And this is just based on your conversations with the youth. These are not questions to be asked. Youth, they're just, based on your knowledge and your conversations that you've had with the youth. And it's okay if you don't know. If you don't, that's okay. But just, check what you do know, even if you're like, well, it's kind of this, but not really, make notes on it. That's okay too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know a lot of people that send in referrals to us, they make notes in the little boxes and it's like, well, this happened, but not exactly. So yeah, just make little notes. And if we have any questions, we'll give you a call about the referral and ask to, discuss about the client a little bit. All right.
Brooke asked if we had a copy of any of the slang terms that use, so we'll get that out to you guys.
Yep,
we do have that. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. For adults, anyone 22 years or older, you do not have to complete the rapid indicator or the comprehensive tool. For these individuals, you will just have to fill out the standard safe harbors of the Finger Lakes referral form. When meeting with a potentially trafficked adult, bring up the topic of trafficking and exploitation and ask them, what they know about it. It's easier to be more upfront with adult clients and have these challenging conversations as it is with youth. It is also important to assess the client's risk through an IPV lethality assessment. This assessment asks questions such as, does the perpetrator threaten to kill you? Do they own a gun? Do they spy on you? Or, do they leave you threatening notes or messages? There are also many voluntary service options the client can take. There is an anonymous tip line in which a client can go on here and anonymously report their trafficker. So let me pull that up. So this is the website. It's the National Human Trafficking Hotline, but you can come online and submit a report into the cyber tip line. Just put as much information as you can, or the client feels comfortable giving. It's pretty lengthy, but it's definitely important to fill out. Then, this tip line is also great for individuals who aren't ready to meet with law enforcement, but they would like to share information regarding their trafficker or other victims as well. And there is also the New York State confirmation process, in which we will touch about in a couple of slides. And there are many shelter programs in the area that clients can go to get out of a dangerous or toxic situation. And there's ongoing support and advocacy from agencies, such as Safe Harbors of the Finger Lakes. All right, the referral process. Well, the Taskforce referral. For clients 21 and under, the Taskforce referral form, rapid indicator tool, and the comprehensive tool must be emailed to advocate@cacfingerlakes.org. On the right is the Taskforce referral form, and it is important that you fill out as much as you can. This form helps me to know what services are already in place and who the client is already working with. The last question on the referral, is this referral for identification only? So right there. It's very important to answer this question. So this question basically means, are you looking to identify the youth at risk of trafficking, or are you looking to have the services implemented for the youth? So if you select yes, this referral is for identification only, then we will not reach out to the youth at that time. By selecting yes, it's a way for us to keep the at-risk youth on our radar. And we are a voluntary service agency, so if they say no, I don't want services, then you can also submit us this referral, but as identification only. Normally, if we receive 3 to 4 identification only referrals for the same client, we set up an MDT meeting to see what exactly is going on with the youth and the best next steps to support them. So yet again, like I said, if you select no, this referral is not for identification only, I will reach out to the youth or the guardian or parent to discuss SHFL advocacy services. However, it's important to note that Safe Harbors, like I said before, is a voluntary service agency, meaning that we only work with clients who would like to utilize our services. So now for clients 22 and older, the standard SHFL referral form must be completed and emailed to info@shfl.org. So to recap a little bit, for individuals 21 and under, you must submit the Taskforce referral form, rapid indicator, and comprehensive tool to advocate@cacfingerlakes.org. For individuals 22 years and up, you just fill out the standard SHFL referral form and email that to info@shflny.org. So now we are going to switch gears a little bit and do a case study. So I know Sarah emailed all this stuff out to you guys as well, so feel free to read the case study with me or on your own. So Leo is 16 years old and is attracted to other boys. He finally decides to come out to a few close friends. They are supportive, and so he tells his sister, even though he knows his family will disapprove. His sister is furious, and despite his begging not to, she tells their parents. Leo's parents are so upset that they kick him out of the house. Leo sleeps on his friends' couches as long as he can, but eventually he becomes homeless. At a local park, where sometimes he sleeps, Leo meets Max, who is also living on the street. Max and Leo become friends and eventually boyfriends. Max knows a lot more about surviving on the street than Leo. One night, the temperature outside is unbearable and they can't get into the shelter. They want to get a hotel room, but don't have any money. They go to an area Max knows about, and they have sex with 2 men who promise to pay for dinner in a hotel room. All right, so now we're going to fill out the rapid indicator tool based on that scenario. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so on the first page, it'll tell you the instructions again. Up top, it's important to fill out the name of the child, their birth date. If they don't want to give you their birth date or you don't know it, you can also put their age estimate, your name, today's date, and the agency or school district that you work for. So now the first one, are there signs of child abuse of a sexual nature and reason to believe that the child or parent / guardian of the child or other persons facilitating the abuse was given or promised anything in return for the sexual abuse? No, we don't have any of that information that was given to us in the case scenario. There's no reason to believe there are photographs or social media posts at this time. There's no concern that the parent has been a victim of trafficking. So this one, does the child have a history of multiple runaways / AWOLs or episodes of homelessness / couch surfing in the past? And in parentheses, it says family homelessness should not be counted. However, if family homelessness is going on, I do want to know about that, and I do want to know that's going on. So any homelessness at all, honestly, just please check that box off. So that he does not have tattoos, to our knowledge. We don't know how old Max is, so we can't say how, that he's significantly older. We don't know anything about STIs. The child, Leo, he has hotel keys. Those 2 men got him and Max that hotel, so he does have hotel keys, and he cannot account for those because he is experiencing homelessness right now. Gang affiliation hasn't been disclosed. We don't know if his parents has his identification or not. And do you have any other reason to believe the child may be a sex trafficking victim? Yes, we do, because Leo reports engaging in commercial sex acts. So we know that Leo is trading sex for a place to stay and food. So yes, there is more to believe. And because there were 1 or more indicators marked yes, you're going to check this box. And then now we're going to go to the comprehensive tool. All right, so yet again, the instructions are on the first page. Always important to fill out that top part. So now we'll go through the federal definition. Child reports and engaging in commercial sex acts. Yes, so Leo engaged in sex.
I'm sorry, are you able to zoom in a little bit so that we can maybe see a little bit closer about what you're looking at?
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that better? Okay, perfect. So Leo engaged in commercial sex. As you know, he had sex for a place to stay and food. So that would be yes. He hasn't, well, that would be yes as well. I apologize. I'm all over the place. We don't know if there are photos or videos. Law enforcement did not refer the child. Child does report having sex for a place to stay or food. He does not report being involved in the sex industry. We don't know if anyone witnessed, and we assume that Leo is not 18, as didn't we talk about his age? As he is 16, yes. Alrighty. So because there are multiple boxes checked off yes, so if let's say that Leo is in the care, custody, or supervision of an LDSS, voluntary agency, or OCFS. Because Leo meets the federal definition criteria of sex trafficking, then the safe harbor lead must submit the law enforcement report of a child sex trafficking victim form to the New York State Police within 24 hours. So this is why it's so important to notify your safe harbor lead that you have submitted a referral for cases like Leo's. And like I said, you know, this does not apply to school-based staff at all. So now we'll go into the high-level indicators. Leo is associating with other adults or children being prostituted, involved with trafficking. So yeah, he is. He's involved with Max. He's being seen in exploitation hotspots. You know, that place that Max took him to in the park. That place, you know, they found those two guys. So we can assume that is an exploitation hotspot. Pattern of street homelessness and staying with someone believed to be sexually exploiting the youth. So, you know, Max introduced Leo to this whole new world. So we would select yes for that. He's being taken to clubs and hotels by adults or older peers. Those two men took him to the hotel, which we can assume. He did not disclose of serious sexual assault and then withdrawal. He was not abducted. He does not report being moved around for sexual activity, does not disappear from the child welfare system, doesn't use slang terms, doesn't recruit, doesn't have tattoos to our knowledge. All of these are no to our knowledge based on what we learned. And as we know right now, because of Leo's age, he should be in school. We don't know if, you know, he dropped out or anything. It's not in the case scenario, but we can assume that, you know, he should be in school and he's not attending school. So we can check that box off. And as well, the unaccounted money or goods. So, you know, he has unaccounted, you know, the hotel room and the food, you know, how? So that is the comprehensive. And then after that, you will fill out the task force, the task force referral. So the task force referral cover sheet, it goes into, you know, the directions. It also tells you the email again, where to submit all of these. And it also does give you links to the comprehensive and rapid indicator if you ever lose those forms. So up here, you'll put today's date, name of the child, your name and agency, your phone number, just in case I have any questions about, you know, the youth or, you know, their situation, and, you know, fill as much out as you can. So their date of birth, age, gender, school, grade, race, if they have any nicknames or street names that they go by, and if you know if they are on social media, if you're able to get those usernames, I would love those. If they have a phone number, that is also important. Leo currently lives with Max, and that is his boyfriend. And, you know, he is homeless, so we're not exactly sure. So we know that he's not on probation. Well, we assume that he's not on probation. So the reason for the referral: Leo is currently experiencing homelessness and is engaging in sexual behaviors with men in order to obtain food and hotel rooms for him and his boyfriend, Max. So, you know, what's going on, what current services are involved, recommendations. So definitely housing, counseling, school support, workforce development program might be a good place to refer him to. And then again, is a police report necessary? Is an SCR report necessary? And has this referral been discussed with the client? And is this referral for identification only? So pretty simple. This form is to fill out as well.
So I think the most confusing question about the task force referral is that very last one, which says, is this referral for identification only? So the only time that you want to say yes to this question is yes, if it's identification only, then that means that you're only letting us know that this child is on the to put this child on the radio and that they're at risk. So even if you have a lot of check marks on the indicator and the comprehensive, it's still okay to make it identification only. And you can make this referral multiple times. So if you send it to us in June and then you send it to us again in August and then you send another one in December, that's okay. So we want, because then that lets us know that, okay, this child has been flagged multiple times. Let's see if we can get the MDT or we can get the other service providers and have a mini case review to discuss this child and see how we can implement services. So if it's for identification only, you can say, yes, that's okay. But if you want the child to have services and the child is open to services, or the family, the parent is open to services, then check no, so that we know that it's okay to contact the parent or contact the child to set up services. That makes sense? Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that because it's a little confusing sometimes.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And then what happens next? So a CAC will be completed if necessary. So this is where a forensic interviewer interviews the child, and it is recorded via audio and video, so that that child does not have to, share their story again and, become re-traumatized. We also may set up an MDT meeting. This is one of the most informative meetings, as oftentimes a child provides different information to their providers, and this helps to place all the pieces correctly in the puzzle. It also helps us as a team to determine what services need to be involved, as well as next steps. We touched on identification only, but like we both said, it's crucial to be selecting yes or no to that question on the Taskforce referral. If you select yes, it is for identification only. We won't reach out to the youth at that time, but if we receive, like 3 to 4 identification only referrals, then we may want to schedule an MDT meeting. And Safe Harbors of the Finger Lakes provides numerous services to victims of trafficking. We can safety plan with them, provide advocacy with law enforcement, Homeland Security, the juvenile justice system, and OCFS. We can also provide emergency transportation assistance, whether that be the client needs help getting to appointments or transporting them out of an unsafe situation to somewhere they're safe. We also provide accompaniment to court, probation, and medical appointments, and we can assist individuals in the New York State human trafficking confirmation process. So a little bit about that New York State confirmation process. So it can be completed for any minor or adult who discloses human trafficking. In order for the client to receive a confirmation letter, there must be one police report to indicate that they have reported the crime against them. The confirmation letter can help clients in legal or criminal issues. For example, this letter can help them expunge their past record. It will also give them access to DSS services such as housing, and it will help them obtain their proof of identity, such as social security cards or their birth certificate. And the letter will also provide the victim status as the New York State confirmed trafficking victim. So this is the form pulled up so you can see it a little bit clearer, but you can fill out this form. You just really describe any force, fraud, or coercion that has happened, basically what has happened. And there's also now an online form. If you just Google New York State referral of human trafficking victim online, that'll pop up as well. And I'm more than happy to send out that link as well. So many people do not feel that they are victims of exploitation and believe what is happening to them is their fault. Please reach out to us if you have any concerns or questions regarding if the client you're working with is a trafficking victim. We are more than happy to chat with you in ways we can provide services or what the next steps are. The youth may just need some extra support and someone that they can go to when they need something or when something happens. Like I said, we can assist victims into getting counseling services, medical and legal accompaniment, safety planning, getting new copies of birth certificates, social security cards, driver's license, and we can assist with any schooling issues like the GER program, figuring out college, or even, just what's going on in school day to day. And like I said, we can also provide emergency transportation assistance. Reach out to us and we can find some ways to help. So my contact information is right there, as well as Melissa's and our 24-hour hotline. Thank you all for listening and taking time out of your day to come to this presentation. Are there any questions?